It all started with a boy. Not an executive, not a journalist, not an insider. A simple 18-year-old boy, his Lakers jersey folded over his arms, his hands sweating as he walked up to the Mavericks' new owner, Patrick Dumont. He took a deep breath, looked the man in the eye, and said, "I want to apologize." Months earlier, frustrated with the trade that had sent his favorite player away, he had flipped Dumont the bird during a public appearance, something childish, impulsive, typical of a rebellious teenager. But now, with the dust settling, he felt guilty, and he went to apologize in person. But nobody imagined that such a small moment would be the first domino in a gigantic collapse within the Mavericks. Dumont listened to the boy patiently and responded with something nobody was prepared to hear. "I always try to do what's best for the organization, but sometimes you have good intentions and still make mistakes." These words, spoken almost innocently, were the equivalent of turning on a giant red light over everything that was happening. It was like a cry for help coming from the team owner himself. The question is, what mistake was this? And more importantly, why was he admitting this to a teenager? Because without realizing it, the Mavericks owner was confessing to the whole world that he had lost confidence in the man who led the basketball team, Nico Harrison. It didn't take even a day for everything to collapse. It was exactly 14 hours and 30 minutes between the conversation with the boy and the official announcement. Nico Harrison fired. And then, everything changed. The beginning of the chaos. To understand why this happened, we need to go back a few months. Patrick Dumont wasn't a tyrant. He wasn't one of those owners who meddle in everything, who interfere in trades, who treat the team like a toy. On the contrary, he had zero experience in professional basketball. He was put in charge by his mother-in-law, part of Mark Cuban's team, and decided to do what seemed most sensible: trust the general manager. And that's when everything went wrong. Nico Harrison, excited about the chance to build his legacy, decided to risk everything in a move that seemed bold, but which would prove to be a historic disaster. The trade that sent Luka Doncic to Los Angeles. The trade that destroyed the franchise's foundation. The trade that turned the Mavericks into a joke among analysts. The trade that made Dumont the most booed owner in the NBA. And the most surreal thing is that Dumont didn't realize the magnitude of the explosion until he saw it with his own eyes. The first time he returned to an arena, the crowd greeted him with deafening boos. He was confused, looking around, asking the security guards, "Is this for me? They're booing me?" Yes, they were. The whole city was. The entire NBA world was watching. But deep down, it wasn't his fault. It was the fault of those he trusted. Nico's mistake. The trade that destroyed Dallas was so absurd it seemed unbelievable. Luka, at 25 in his prime, carrying the team to the finals, being traded for Anthony Davis, a player who was already injured at the time of the trade, and along with him, only Max Christie and a first-round pick. A package so weak it seemed like a college prank. And worse, the negotiation was conducted with rookie mistakes. Nico tried to hide information from the Lakers. He refused to let Rob Pelinka talk to Luka. He spent weeks asking for secrecy, and in the end, he sabotaged his own return on the trade for no reason. There was never any logic. There was never any strategy. There was only an obsession with AD that completely blinded the general manager. Meanwhile, Dumont, well, back once more. He fell again. Meanwhile, Luka, even out of shape, led the Lakers to the top of the West with monstrous averages. And soon after, he appeared lean, toned, saying, "This year is for revenge." The Mavericks' horror was complete. And then came the second blow of fate, the most brutal irony in the NBA. With only a 1.8% chance, Dallas won the first pick in the draft. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. It seems like a cheap movie script, but it happened. And so, the Mavericks received a divine gift. Cooper Flagg, the generational kid, the new face of the NBA. It would be perfect. If Luka were there, it would be the beginning of a dynasty. It would be the moment every franchise dreams of. But no, because Nico Harrison decided to destroy everything before that. The fans couldn't even enjoy Cooper. For them, all Cooper. Dumont finally stood up for himself. "No, we're not going to destroy the franchise's future to save a bad decision." When an owner who doesn't understand basketball starts correcting the general manager, it's over. Nico was fired. With the new GM arriving, Dallas needs to make gigantic decisions. The first, abandon the attempt to win now. Why? Because there's no roster. There's no depth. There are no good contracts. There's no flexibility, and there are no picks, except for the 2026 one, which is precious. Therefore, the plan is simple. Trade veterans who still have value build around Cooper, lose now to try to get Darren Peterson or AJ Debinsa, rebuild the franchise from scratch. It seems radical, but it's the only way out. A new beginning starts with sacrifice. The fate of Anthony Davis. Ad still has value, but he will never be the return Dallas would like to have. Even so, there are two clear destinations. One, Chicago, his hometown. A team that has flirted with AD several times. They have Kobe White, who would be perfect alongside Cooper too. Miami, where everyone wants to play. Where Pat Riley loves troubled stars. Where AD could play as a mobile center alongside Bam Adebayo. Dallas won't win the trade. But that doesn't even matter. The focus now is the future. And that future is named Cooper. The light at the end of the tunnel. It's tragic. It's chaotic. It's shameful. But there is something Dallas can still learn from a recent NBA case. The story of Ryan Rollins. 2 years ago, Rollins was practically out of the league. He was released. He faced serious personal problems. Everything pointed to the end. But the Bucks gave him a second chance. They believed in him. And today, he is one of the best stories of overcoming adversity. This season, what Dallas needs now is exactly this. A second chance, a real rebuild, a new identity, and a GM who thinks about the future, not personal obsessions. The chaos the Mavericks experienced will not be forgotten. The Luka trade will never disappear, but with courage, patience, and a clear plan, maybe, just maybe, Dallas can transform this disaster into a rebirth. And who would have thought? It all started with an 18-year-old boy, a Lakers jersey, and an apology.